Greetings, my name is Quiera Archer. Welcome to my online Zoom forum. I designed this community gathering in early April in response to the urgency of how we navigate this global pandemic with a sense of community. I am thrilled to share innovative thinkers in my community with you who have focused their lives on wellness and overall lifestyle success throughout all seasons. I couldn't think of a better way to contribute to this moment than continuing my work by sharing powerful information for our collective transformation. I look forward to you joining in on the discussions and strengthening our connectedness. I hope you enjoy and thank you for joining.
We want to welcome you to what I'm going to call our inaugural, our opening, our first, um, I guess, community convening with my sister. So I'm just going to jump in and go for it. I want to pray that you all are well and actually managing this new normal that we find ourselves in today, that we find ourselves having to live. This new era that we've entered is one that's filled with lots of emotions, restrictions, changes to life that we've known. And some of us, I'm sure, may have numerous ideas about how, we got here, or why we're here, or who put us here. I even have some of my own thoughts, right? However, that's not what this series is aiming to address. um, we are here to look at, now that we're here, what do we do? And how do we deal with being here? So, although those other areas may be areas we'd like to address one day, they're not the areas we're going to deal with today. So, I'm just, Tyoma, as people come in, I'm just going to kind of keep doing the overview, huh?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, thanks. Some of you either know me from work at Ife Tayo, my previous career, or more recently, my efforts empowering effective yet mindful, connected, and well balanced leaders. In all of my work, there's been a theme, and that's love. Ife Tayo's name was selected because of its meaning of love being enough for joy. No matter the circumstances, once we truly understand the fullness of love, and now this series is focused on cultivating love through various helpful, natural, and at times ancient information. Today, our first session is focused on cultivating wellness with my longtime dear sister, looking at how we are navigating this new normal in regard to our health, exploring questions like how we can use this time as an opportunity for our wellness and well being, always remembering, right, that cultivating wellness from within is a process of coaching that guides, elicits, teaches, and supports to enable you to tap your natural resources for healthy well being and resolve the blocks. We're living in times right now that prevent us from doing what's really natural to us. Many of us want to go outside when the sun is beginning to peek through. Some of us are feeling locked away, feeling a loss of freedom, anxiety, fear, loss of control, vulnerable, or just damn frustrated, excuse the language. While others have jumped into action, holding on to this moment to launch something aggressively online, a new product, an invention that reflects the current reality, as well as somebody next door might have just lost their job or don't have enough money to buy food or stockpile all that paper products that we've been talking about that you see in the news, similar to just that giving us that feeling of just deprivation, right? Many are locked away with abusers, and many are isolated from their families, some without internet access, and many getting sick or trying to prevent illness, diligently not trying to catch it, or catch it in the beginning stages, or just praying that they're not one of the ones that have to be on a respirator or go to the hospital for some other illness. We are living in a state of crisis, right? For a lot of people. And how to navigate that is going to be what this session is about. But all of that is a backdrop. I couldn't think of a better person than my longtime sister, Tyoma, as our first guest to share with us how to cultivate wellness to ensure that we come out on the other side of this with stronger immune systems and a deeper connection to ourselves and the planet as we enter the new normal. Thank everyone for joining us. In particular, thank you, Sister Tyoma.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
I feel honored. I'm
oh,
really pleased to be here. Thank you for midwifing this into being, you know, with your usual flair. Give thanks.
So yes. So just to give you all a little history, I put a little blurb about Tyoma's resume, but I'm going to give you the casual version. And my history with her goes back about 35 years or so. I know it's scary. I don't know. I was
it's
one.
True. You were
about,
one, for sure.
I was one. Yeah, I know.
Oh,
So I love speaking about her simply because her accomplishments and life trod have been so diverse yet relevant and connected. She's a scholar. She graduated from 3 Ivy Leagues, right? No one knows your first. Okay, NYU, Yale, and Columbia. But, you know, people don't typically know that Tyoma's, you know, favorite pastime is Scrabble. She's delivered thousands of babies, all 3 of mine. One quick story about her. I was pregnant 6 months, went to Mexico and drank the water in error and was really in a bad way when I came back to America. And Tyoma ran in Prospect Park, grabbed 2 leaves, steeped them for me, and in 30 minutes, it was gone. I mean, that's trust and love, but that's also skill and knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. So Tyoma really knows her stuff. She's a homeopath. She's an herbalist. She gives regular herbal walks. She's a mother, a grandmother, a sister, and a wife, and a lifelong learner. So to put everything in context, this talk is for people who are seeking or want to continue their connection with ancient healing approaches and the connection to nature and natural wellness. Some of the things our practitioners share may not necessarily be in mainstream, although ancient wisdom and is tried and proven oftentimes for thousands of years, although it doesn't seem to be the first choice of many in society. It has the depth of time, but maybe not the breadth of awareness, which is why I'm really excited to ensure that we bring people like, or geniuses, in my opinion, like Tyoma to this forum. So Tyoma, I want to really jump in right away and again welcome you officially on behalf of everyone. I mean, the response that we got about you, I told you, someone said, this is gold. Sister Tyoma, this is gold, what she has to offer. There's got to be another way to open it up. And so I just am honored, as always, to be in your presence as my sister, my friend, my confidant, but also my teacher. And so tonight, while we're in this place of social distancing and finding new norms through the digital world, I want to jump in and talk about COVID and its effect on us and start off the discussion with some basic questions that we can respond to right away in our lives as soon as we get off the phone. And so first I want to ask you, what herbs should we or can we take on a daily basis that we have in our kitchens or we can get from the supermarket to strengthen our immunity? So we're going to start off light and then go a bit deeper.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. You know, love is truly enough for happiness. And I thank you for bringing your loving heart to this and making this a happy circle, you know, making this a circle that's, I hope, going to benefit us all as we move forward through these difficult times. So you asked me about different herbs that we could use. There are quite a few of them, and I always like to jump in with the kitchen medicines. Everybody knows me like Yeah, she's a kitchen medicine woman because those medicines that, our kitchen medicines were brought in. They were brought into the home by the healers, the women, and women heal on a daily basis. We heal with our love, we heal with our looks, we heal with our touch, we heal with our teas, we heal with our food. And so a lot of the kitchen medicines are both seasoning and they're herbs too that, will help us. I mean, your diarrhea, if you don't mind my bringing
I
that up.
didn't use the word. I was trying to be discreet, sister.
The
That's what
runs.
happened when someone is your best friend. I'm not.
Sorry. The runs. who's revenge again? Anyway, Montezuma's revenge. So
Yes,
anyhow,
yes.
yeah, we could have used something if it was not so strong. We could have used something as mild as cinnamon. Cinnamon is astringent and it's cleansing as well because everything your body does there's a reason. There's a reason for it. The body has its own, like your temple is a place that tries to sort itself out. So when these things are happening, it's like the intelligence of the body. So if you give something like cinnamon, use cinnamon sticks and brew yourself a tea, then cinnamon also clears away, as the Chinese say, the slime from the body. And so it is cleansing, which will allow, and it is also astringent. So the signal to the body will be like, yeah, we're clean enough now, it can't stop that that extra cleansing that you were doing. And it will also assist the body to do that because of this lightly astringent nature of cinnamon. Cinnamon it's a super, super herb. But at that point, we needed blackberry bark, bayberry bark, and some of the leaves to use for you. But anyhow, so back to COVID. So like big difference these past 3 months, and COVID, when you ponder the name, it's like COVID is a crown, and so it really involves our crown and being centered within our heads or our wreaths, you will call it, and being able to wake up in the morning, do a meditation, say a prayer instead of reaching for the phone. And that's a real discipline and one that I don't always have myself, because you're so like, what happened now? And we're all on the edge of our seats, on the edge of our beds going, oh my God, ooh, watching all these videos, some of which are really disturbing. So I say, when we start in the morning, let's have that moment of peace, of serenity, of taking a deep breath and getting our heads in a space of centeredness. Right? So speaking of breath, one of the things that we're going to do too is just deep breaths, deep, slow abdominal breaths, breathing really deeply into our lungs, because that way we're bringing all the oxygen that we need, into our bodies, and we're toning up our lung tissue and exhaling all of the negativity, or not just carbon dioxide, but all that, fear and grief that we may be carrying within our lungs, and giving us ourselves this new start for the morning. So herb wise, there are a bunch of things that we can do with herbs. One of them is to steam. A lot of people have been pointing out the benefits of steaming, which we knew from our mothers and our grandmothers. So we steam with, a lot of people use just warm water, salty water. I've seen people putting orange peel in the water. Wonderful.
Oh, really?
All of that. Yes.
Okay.
Which is antiviral. That's one of those antiviral herbs that you can use for steaming or for tea. We can also use stuff like eucalyptus, those antiviral essential oils, which are all those very powerful aromatic oils. Our eucalyptus and our rosemary and our orange and our bergamot and, lime, lemon, all of those oils that, penetrate and help in various ways. And they all have different ways of approaching viruses, whether it's like stripping the coat of the virus or undermining its, ability to, get into our bodies and, get into our cells. They have different ways, and it's wonderful that we have the ability to utilize all of those ways, you know, once we get our oils together. In terms of teas, again, you know, you just gather together what it is that you have around you because, again, back to virucidal teas or antiviral teas are, again, our rosemary or eucalyptus, you know, orange peel, or garlic, onions, and there's so many different ways to use it because you can cut up an onion, pour a little bit of honey on it, right? And you know, honey itself is a remedy. So if your throat starts to feel a little scratchy, you know, you can use that as a not only a cough syrup, but also a throat coat and a throat cleanser. You know, you leave it overnight. You know, you can also put some garlic in there. So you chop up onions, chop up garlic. If you have radish, throw some of that in there too, you know, and then just cover it with your honey. It will pull out all the juices, all those wonderful cleansing antiviral juices from the herbs or foods, you know, they're herb foods, these. And in the morning, you have a wonderful syrup, you know, that you can utilize, you know, to heal yourself and to prevent. Prevention, 9 times easier and better than cure. So you want to really, really indulge yourself in
So,
these wonderful herbs.
so Sister T, I have one question.
Yeah.
Is there a particular onion that's better to use, the red, the white, or the yellow, or does it
Yeah.
matter? And are you suggesting that we take that elixir, that syrup, in the morning when we wake up, or do steaming first, or herbs first, as a prevention or preventative approach?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, it really is a matter of how much time. Most of us have quite a bit of time on our hands now. So so we can get up, do that luxuriant steaming, and then, you know, have a cup. Some people use that same pot of herbs and drink it. You know, you may feel a different way about that. You may feel like you really want to reserve that for steaming, you know, maybe for a couple of days, and make a separate pot to drink. And yeah, then you drink your tea. And water, of course, is very, very important. You know, water that's a little bit warm with a squeeze of lemon in it is also wonderful, you know, to cleanse and even to start the morning with. And then you have your teas, you know, and it's lovely.
Can you take too much lemon and lime in a
You
day?
Yes. I think that anything that's powerful, you have to treat with respect. You know,
Okay.
we know lemon is really powerful, you know.
Yes.
There's a way to take it where you're like, you put that lemon into that blender and just blend it up with some, you know, lukewarm water, some aloe vera, and leaf of life, which we have here. It's right by me, not too far away. And say some, you know, I'm going to show you right now that
Okay.
this is our basil, you know, shining with a little beautiful white flowers. And here we have some rosemary leaning up against. Can you see it?
Yes, we can. But I don't want to talk because it will
Oh,
take the
good.
screen away
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah. And here we have garlic. Oh, garlic. You know, if you have a pot, you know, or you know, find these lovely buckets and with some great soil and grow yourself, you know, some, not now, obviously, in time for, you know, tomorrow, but you know, it's lovely to have your own little herb garden so you can pick up, you know, and utilize these herbs. And, you know, it's really about what do I feel like doing today? Really, you want to get, you know, you don't want to be stuck on one thing, because the truth is that all of these therapies, many of these therapies that have been passed around, are powerful and useful. And if you feel like doing a steam today and just doing your water and your teas tomorrow, it's all good. You know, we don't have
Right.
to get hung up on one way of doing things, for sure.
Right. So if you if you're talking about the steaming, we could do that in the mornings, right? And that's with herbs possibly in our kitchen. We cook with rosemary, we cook with mint, we cook with, you know, these different things that you mentioned. I've heard people talking about, like, if you feel something in your nose and you're outside, you come in and you could steam, right? I don't know, you know, and that's cleansing your nostrils and so forth, your nasal passage.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Are those the same, that's the same concept you're talking about, right? And I know we have a lot of advanced people on, but I just also want to make sure we all start on a level playing field. We have, you know,
Yes.
yeah. So that's something we can do in the daytime as well.
Absolutely. In the evening before we go to sleep, it's all fabulous. And the thing is just to get
Okay.
creative, you know, with using all of these herbs. If you are making some soup, you know, some kind of soup, you can take cayenne pepper, you know, and whether you have it in the form of the actual like pepper itself, which is always nice,
Mhm.
or you know, the powder, and you throw it into the soup. You know, you chop up garlic and put it in fairly raw, you know, because the more raw the garlic is, the more powerful it is in your body, you know.
Right,
You
right.
you know, cook it with a lot of those herbs, those same herbs that we discussed, you know, and put them in close to the end so they don't get too boiled out of shape. And you know, then you'll find that it goes right up into your head. Your entire sinus area is actually flooded with this wonderful heat and the essential oils contained in these herbs. So it's going to stimulate, it's going to cleanse. You may find yourself having to go for, you know, a napkin or, you know, paper towel
Ah,
and just blow that nose, and it's all good because
mhm.
that is removing some of that from your system, you know. There's
Okay.
been a lot of flip-flopping about whether or not we should use masks. Masks are good. Masks are good. You know, the countries that got over this thing
Mhm.
first and fastest are the ones that use masks
Right.
a lot. You know, it became sort of a mandate, you know, that everybody, when you go outside, try to use your mask. Do you know, because you're doing that for your fellow citizen and they're doing it for you.
Right,
So if
right,
you're
right.
using a mask, it's a cloth mask, say, which they're going to tell you, oh, you know, that's not like the N95. You could still put a little bit of essential oil on that mask, you know,
Mm.
and make sure
That,
that as you're breathing it in, you're actually medicating your nasal passages so that any virus that happens to slip through the mask, remember, it's going to be a barrier anyway, maybe not an absolute barrier, but it is going to be a barrier. So anything that slips through that barrier, don't feel no way because the oil there to catch it, you know. So you're gonna just think of ways that you can layer the goodness, you know, layer the um warriors against corona, you know.
which
And
oils? Sorry, what oils would you recommend on the
recommend,
inside of our mask?
right, and again, you know, we're gonna hit on some of those same herbs, you know, but essential oils of rosemary, you know, basil, your orange oil and lemon oil, lime oil, all of those, you know, bergamots, they're all, and if you look them up, they're all anti, you know, viral, all of them are
Okay.
antiviral, or eucalyptus. And I have a list. Tea tree,
Oh,
of course. Tea tree,
okay.
yes. Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a great one.
Okay. So we could send out a
Yes,
list after for people who, you know, we
yes.
could definitely send that out. Before we go on to some of the more specific foods that you recommend, can these herbs that you're talking about and these methods be used for adults as well as elders and children and babies? Or,
Ah,
yeah.
yes, yes, they can, they can. Um, there is usually nothing to worry about with these herbs. These herbs, remember, they're all, that's why I love to focus on kitchen medicines. All of
Mhm.
these herbs are herbs that we have moved into the house because they're so mild, you know, because they're so
Right.
gentle, but yet they can act very deeply, you know. So we can use them. We may not use them as strong for an elder as we use for ourselves, and not as strong for a child as we use for ourselves, but they can be used just the same.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I remember
And
being told to put a piece of garlic in the baby sock, and then wake up in the morning, it might
Yes.
burn on the bottom of his foot. So
Yeah, you
I
have
guess
to
it
put,
can.
yes, it can be a little strong. You have to put a little coating of either like
Okay.
aloe or some kind of oil, like
Uh-huh.
coconut oil or some kind of, so that so that that garlic doesn't get too hot.
Right, right. So as we move into foods, Mama,
Yes.
I want to talk about, or I want you to share with everyone what foods we can eat that can really boost our immune system, because this is about a way of life, and I know this is what you really advocate, right? To really build our resistance and our immune system. And
Right.
then after that, if you could take it a little bit further and tell us your thoughts on what people say about different foods, and their colors and shapes relate to different organs. And then I would ask, well, which ones are good for your lungs and throat and, nasal
Okay.
passage? Yeah. So it's like a three-part
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
question. So,
Okay. Okay. All right. So, one of the therapies that is sounding really excellent right about now is utilizing coconut oil. So coconut oil is another amazing healer that we have in our midst. And we know that, coconut oil recently has been touted for Alzheimer's. It's excellent as an anti-inflammatory, but it's also, again, antiviral. So to have like a couple tablespoons in the morning and a couple tablespoons in the evening before bed is really helpful. Um, Coconut oil does a few things, to viruses. One is that if you understand the makeup of a virus, viruses have a fatty, like they have a lipid coating on the outside. So coconut oil is going to like dissolve that coating. It actually helps to disintegrate the coat of the virus and thus make it vulnerable to being destroyed and swept out of the body. Right?
nice.
So that's one thing. It also makes it less easy for that, or makes it hard, in fact, for the virus to enter the cell. Because viruses are like parasites, they don't know whether to call them, living organisms or not. They don't have like a cell body, but they, in a lot of ways, they do act like living organisms, but they're parasites. They like to come into, whether it's a plant or a cell, in an animal, and then they alter the function of that cell a lot of times. And the body, in trying to get rid of it, can actually overinflame itself. And that's part of the reason why, the elders are dying, because of the extreme inflammation and all of that mucus that gets poured into the lungs. And then it interferes with the breathing of the organism, which is counterproductive, So there's a kind of hyper activity of the immune system. And in older people, the balance is not there and they're not able to fight. So, so yes, so it does prevent that virus from entering into the cells of the lungs, right? And it also inhibits the ability of the virus to replicate itself. So it's interfering with reproduction. So these are like three real vital ways that it kind of mash up that thing, and we want it to come in there and do those things. So coconut oil, however you can take it, you pour it on your salad, you put it in your shake, but taking it directly, given that, you want it to go in and do its work without too much, other
Cooking.
things.
Yeah,
Right.
like no,
Without
okay.
yes, yeah, the raw ones. Although, if what you can get is the boiled coconut oil, get that and utilize it, because it'll do a lot too. So that's the first thing, coconut oil. Almost anything that you have that is aromatic as a food, and that's mostly like, again, cooking spices, is going to be excellent for the lungs. The other superfood that I really I can't say enough about is Irish moss, sea moss. And
Mhm.
Irish moss is a great lung tonic. It's a wonderful one. It is something that you want to use a lot of because it strengthens the lung tissue, and it is also really, really good for the thyroid, So your entire metabolism, depends on utilizing, the use of, you know, iodine-rich herbs and foods. So a
Mhm.
lot of people these days, and this is one of our ancient traditional, tonics that unfortunately many people don't know how to use these days, or they kind of think, oh, that's too much work. It just sounds like so. The first thing I would say is that utilizing it raw is. I was taught by my mentor, Rashan Abdul Hakim, aka Ruddy Duckett.
Ruddy Duckett, yes.
You must cook it. See, I have to cook it because it's very yin. It's very cooling for the body, and so you want to add that yang energy, and you do that. Some people say, well, as long as I'm adding spices, it's got the yang. And all right, but I'll do as I'm told in this case because, I really think it makes it more bioavailable for the body.
Mm.
Sometimes cooking does have to break down, the elements so that the body can absorb it. And so I cook my Irish moss. Yes, I don't boil it for like hours, but yeah, it gets 15 minutes of boil. Take it off, add that linseed or flaxseed, and then blend it up. Add cinnamon and nutmeg then too, and then blend it up and keep the gel in the fridge. That way you always have it
Okay.
ready, when you need to blend. And of course,
Okay.
the soaking part, there's you soak it overnight, then pour off the water, take out the sand, and then you go ahead and boil it. But if anybody needs further instructions, I can also type that out. But
Yeah.
yes, so it's very nourishing. It's full of all kinds of wonderful, minerals apart
Mhm.
from the iodine itself. And excellent, excellent, excellent for the lungs.
Okay.
So that's another one I would mention. Um, the other foods I'm going to mention are actually blood tonics
Mm.
because if you remember, there's interaction in the body. So you're not just going to look for something that's excellent for the lungs, but you're going to look for stuff that enriches the blood. So you don't want to be anemic in these times and getting COVID because the idea is that oxygen exchange, is affected, is diminished because you're anemic. So you definitely want to have lots of iron-rich foods, and those are the foods that they're often red, good for iron, and also with older people that may have heart issues, you're going to have foods. You need foods that are also going to be excellent heart tonics as
Right.
well. And those are often red berries. I love to talk about beets. Well, beets as a root and as a very powerful, enriching root, gets to the blood and really is really helpful in,
Mm.
balancing out anemia, addressing anemia, and allowing our oxygen to enter easily into into the body.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that we're going to look at lentils, dried fruits are excellent, and all of our greens, are excellent for enriching the blood, oxygenating. Yes,
Okay. Okay. So
yes.
lentils, people have mixed feelings about peas, beans, and legumes, and could you talk about that a little bit? Like,
Right, yes. Some people really criticize or peas and beans. I think it's very important to know yourself and know your body because for
okay.
some people it is very difficult to digest, the
Mm.
lectins and, but I don't think that that's a universal truth. And I don't think that it's, I think it's related to the quantity, you know, of peas and beans that you consume. Some people are just very intolerant of them. It's like, I just, they'll come back or come out all night. But then some are okay, okay, hey, I soak them, I pour off that water, throw in the ginger and the pimento, and I'm good. And then lentils I find are the least gassy of peas, beans, lentils, the legumes. So
Right.
I would say that if you're going to eat anything else, red lentils, brown lentils, and they're important minerals that they impart. So I would say, yeah, eat,
Okay.
you know, yeah, do
Oh,
the
good.
lentils.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. So I have
Yeah,
two more questions before we go into part two of
right.
this. But we've been talking about prevention, and you've been
Mhm.
extremely clear. And I think giving recommendations that people can go and pull out of their kitchen or go to the supermarket tomorrow and make sure they have it for their whole family and do these things that our grandmother probably taught us. So thank you, Sister Thelma, for that
Yes.
kind of refresher.
Mhm.
That's the prevention. What if we come in contact with someone that has COVID, or we feel like we have symptoms, or we actually, beyond symptoms, are diagnosed with it and tested
Right.
positive? What can we do at that point? Because around the world, people don't want to go to the hospital, and probably most people on the phone want to do everything they can before they get to a hospital if they have to, and or prevent that. And we know
Right.
that most people um will recover, but I have to say the number of passings has been more in the last 3 days of people 1 point away from me than I actually expected.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
I think this is something we have to kind of talk about, like in those three scenarios. What do we do?
Right. 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 Well, I tell you, if you feel you've been in contact, which none of us knows, the the Iceland has been something of a model,
Right.
in this whole COVID response. They've done like massive amount of testing. I think they've tested most of their citizens, and
Wow.
because they've done all this testing, they've been able to identify people who have had COVID and have not had any idea that they've had it. And their estimate is that fully 50% of people will be asymptomatic.
Right.
But they can still pass on the COVID or
Right.
corona. So you may be in contact with somebody who's asymptomatic, that 50, half the people out there won't even know they had it, right? So you might be
Right.
brushing by somebody who just happens to go, and well, that's not quite asymptomatic, but who
Right.
happens to laugh, when you
Mm-hmm.
pass, and you're exposed to it. You may be passing by somebody who's pre-symptomatic, or in the presence of somebody who's pre-symptomatic, meaning
Wow.
they're gonna have symptoms, but it's the 14 days before they actually have symptoms, and you're around them and they're still like, they still can pass it on to you. They're contagious at that point. So that's a lot of people. That's like maybe 80%, of the people that you pass out there. So yes, it is, and it's so, so very contagious. Interesting, the contagion, it is very interesting. Just as a philosophical point, that we are now being driven even further away from one another. Because we live in apartments, we pass each other on the street, and now there's this kind of nervousness about me. I mean, people won't smile at me. I really try to smile. I'm in the supermarket. I'm like, it's all right. It's not, you're not going to catch it from smiling at me. But
Right.
people are
Right.
worried. People are fearful. People are fearful of any contact and connection,
Mm.
but we have to remember that smile and the love that we send out. I say prayers for people when I pass by them if they're looking really afraid and unhappy, because prayers are things, prayers are powerful living things to send out, angel to send out and
Mm.
assist people as we move by. And so it's important to again focus on the love, and bringing the
Mm.
happiness. So, where was I? Um,
Well, what we
yeah.
could
So
take,
what we
like
can
what?
take, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about the way, the manner in which we get this, it's through our head. It's through our crown. So the first
Mm.
thing to take is, it's getting kind of dark. Can you still see me? Or should
We
I go
can
inside?
see you. There's this, yeah, I mean, I can see you. People can like chat and tell us, but
Yes.
I'll
All
tell you
right.
when we can't see you anymore.
All right.
As you hail
So
from Jamaica.
I'm telling you, I'm hearing the crickets now.
I,
So so what we want to do then is to, first of all, don't panic. Fear. What we
ah,
fear, we attract. Fear defeats our immune system. So
hmm.
fear not. Remember that for really 80% of the people, this is going to pass through. And again, most people are probably not going to go know they had it. Some people are going to have mild symptoms, and then a
Right.
few are going to need treatment. But if you are young, um, and I don't believe in um, blanketing all people, all older people, with this, oh, you get corona, you're gonna die thing. Because again, it's often people with issues like diabetes, hypertension, people with heart disease, again, organ weakness, organic weakness that, may make them susceptible. So, okay, you go home, you think, wow, I'm feeling a little like I want to sneeze. Yeah, I'm sneezing. So, again, you can get into that steaming, with your herbs, essential oils. You can take those teas that are, kind of fiery and are going to allow that mucus to run out, taking whatever of the
Mm,
virus with it. Those
right.
teas that are, again, going to coat and cleanse your throat, and allow the virus to be swept into your digestive tract, where the acid in your stomach is going to just burn it away. Lovely.
Okay, right.
Right. Take extra vitamin C. Listening to Gary Null, he's like, take 50,000 milligrams.
Oh,
That's a lot
geez.
of
That's a
that's
lot
a
of
lot of
vitamin C.
vitamin C.
What do you
But
recommend, sis?
well, you know what? I would say you can take 10,000 a day. Take 10,000 a day, because that's a lot, and it's gonna cause diarrhea probably. But if you do that for like 3 days, if you're a vitamin C person, some people are like, yo, vitamin C just doesn't do it for me. So they do oregano oil, right? They'll do and again, you can't take too much oregano oil. It's quite strong, it's quite powerful. You take a little quarter teaspoon coconut oil, right? As
Okay.
we spoke about before. you
Mhm.
know um you can use your neti pot, with your salt water, or just sniff the salt water up on in either nostril, and spit it out. Then you're gargling. The idea is that you are not going to just sit there and go, oh, I'm dying. You're not.
Yeah.
You're living, and
Right.
you're living on a brilliant, being, and you're going to think of all those things that from your grandmother, from all the things, all the lovely posts that people have been, sending us, all the WhatsApps and so on, that are of assistance. And you're going to
So
do those things,
that's right,
so that
girl.
even if you get it, it's going to be mild, because you've already done, swept out your body with the, the agents that you know to be helpful and wonderful. Yeah,
Nice.
we're really
You are
blessed.
getting you are getting a little dark in the background, but as you
Yes,
transition inside, I you can still hear us. If you
yes.
can move inside, that'd be great because I know they want to see
All
your
right.
lovely face. You have, well, I'll just kind of recap. Tyoma has gone over, Sister Tyoma has gone over things like, even your homemade mask and putting essential oil on the inside to ensure that you have an additional barrier. She's talked about
Mm-hmm.
kitchen remedies and medicines, everything from steaming with eucalyptus and other herbs that she's going to give us a list of that we'll forward to you. She's talked about different blood strengthening foods that we can eat to make sure your overall system is strong and able fit, right? So if anything is
Yes.
happening, you're not anemic and broke down where you can't
Mm-hmm.
really resist or fight anything. And she just ended with this vitamin C. She talked about garlic, lots of things, right? But also vitamin
Yes.
C, probably even saying taking 10,000 milligrams a day
Mhm.
during
For a
this
few
period. I think for
days.
3 days. 3 days. I want to
For 3 days,
clarify.
because in fact, when you go over, I think it's 6,000 milligrams, vitamin C can affect your red blood cells. You know, it
Right.
can actually kill off some of your red blood cells. So it's not something you want to stay on in very high doses for very long.
So
You know.
what is a maintenance dose after the 3 days that you want to be a little above the recommended daily allowance, but something
Definitely.
that's gonna, yeah. So what can we do for a long period of time?
Right. So RDA is really low. So you can do, I mean, I'm like a couple thousand milligrams really, you know, and you can play with it. Some people go quite a bit higher than that, but I think a couple thousand milligrams, and try and
Right.
get it live. You know, really live is great. So your citrus oils and your sweet peppers and tomatoes. You know, speaking of live foods are very
Mhm.
powerful and really helpful too. You
Right.
know, and our soups are as well. You know, a delicious,
Yes.
nourishing, comforting, warming soups with all of those hot herbs that again, that's a steam in itself. So
Right.
yeah.
Huh.
The
So Sister,
spectrum.
thank you for that. Sister
Yeah.
T, the last question in this section is about fevers.
Yes.
You have, I mean, I have not heard a lot of people talk about fevers the way you talk about fevers. And
Mm-hmm.
you're an advocate for this, and knowing how to do it is really important. And I want to know if you can kind of drill down into this fever thing, because one thing people are getting, whether it's corona or flu or just whatever, something in your system, your body will take on a fever. And the first time I heard you talk about this or advocate for this, I was a little surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I learned it from grandma and stuff, but
Yeah.
I think it's such an important piece, particularly when people have children and they don't want anything to happen to them. You get very nervous, you want to stop the fever. So if you could just kind of take us down that journey from child to elder with this fever thing.
Right. So
Yeah.
fever is scary, when children get a fever because their metabolisms, they're metabolizing, everything in their life so quickly. Everything is faster for a child, including their heart rate, their breathing, everything. So
Hmm.
they spike high fevers also because they need that. They need that heat to clear, whatever, all of the toxins that they may have encountered during their this leg of their journey. And when a child gets a fever and is allowed to have that fever, right,
Mhm.
and recuperate from it, they often make developmental leaps. Parents will know that.
Really?
That's why our parents used to say, grow with a fever, grow with a fever. They grow through the fever, through having the fever. They It clears their system so that they can grow, right? So when we are reaching for the Tylenol, we're doing that for us, not for them. It's not.
Mm.
It's not for them. I think that a lot of people that so-called that died because of Chick V recently probably died from an overdose of Tylenol. Tylenol is not candy. It's got serious side effects, and it is the um, greatest cause of acute liver failure in the UK. In other words, if you see somebody with acute liver failure, chances are they had too much Tylenol. And because
Mm.
for some reason your pharmacist is not going to tell you, oh, I see you reaching for that over the counter Tylenol. Let me tell you, it eats up your glutathione, so be careful, which is an important part of your immune system. And it also may cause acute liver failure if you take too much of it. So really be cautious. None of them ever
Right.
say that. Never.
Okay.
Why? So that's one thing, the Tylenol in and of itself. But then it's undermining the fever, which is that's your one of your greatest allies. For AIDS patients, one of the things that they do is that they immerse them in real hot tubs so that their body temperature is raised as if they had a fever. because you want to clear out all of those organisms that are in the body, the opportunistic organisms that are there because their immune system is suffering because of the AIDS. So they're not able to create a fever. So a fever is created for them.
Okay.
So you want really to leave the fever and let it do its work. It doesn't mean you're just going to start allow the child, and you can do a wipe down with lime and water in the evening, because usually fevers will rise in the night, and that's when they get really like, whoa, you're feeling this child, a child feels like a furnace, and you're like, oh my, ugh, and but that's all part of it. You have to trust their bodies and trust that they have the ability, and that you have the ability, because of course in Corona, you're going to have these fevers that are trying to clear the coronavirus from the body. No, fever is like a fire, and like all fires, there are beneficial results, but fever will also, again, because it increases the metabolism, it's going to consume body resources and body fat pretty quickly. So yes, we want to curb it. You can give something like fever grass, which in itself is antiviral, and that's been touted as one of those herbs that you really want to use during this time. So you can utilize that, because fever grass is an intelligent, herbs are intelligent. They don't work like a sledgehammer the way drugs do. You may need a sledgehammer sometime, and I'm not saying that you will never, but utilize the herb that knows to do a dance with the body. Like, you ready to calm down yet? No, not yet. And really get it into a place where, when that time comes where, it's done its work fully, it's going to agree to leave, and the body is going to cool down on its own. So yeah, fever is scary for grown-ups or for the people that are around whoever's having a fever. But the fever has a job to do. The fever has a job to do, and you got to journey with it and let it do its thing until, boom, you awake.
Wow. I hear you with that one, and I learned a lot from you with that. But fevers really still freak me out from when I had children. They were young, and the fever. Like, what is concrete? When you want us to. You're recommending that we feel it out and we use our intuition and our senses. But is there a marker also when we say, okay, it's 10 something, that's it, we have to do something else, we have to pack in ice if you're not ready to go to the hospital? Like, when do you reach a point where a seizure could be an issue with fever? Not to be an alarmist.
All right, well, I tell you, I'm going to look for my little PowerPoint on fever, because I think honestly that I want to be exact about this. The thing is that in all these many years, right? I'm telling you that of course we can't find
so
it.
like, do you, but to take it down, would you
all right,
go ahead, sorry.
When fever cannot in and of itself kill a child, it just can't. Okay, so unless there is some underlying condition, some morbid underlying condition, but a healthy fever. If you see a child that has a fever and is screaming in pain, pain in the neck or pain in the head, maybe you suspect meningitis, so yes, into the hospital, into the pediatrician with that child. If you have a child that has some other underlying condition that might make the fever not go down, which is like rare, that the thermal settings of the body just aren't responding, and that child may, maybe morbidly, that might be a morbid fever. Again, so rare. I've never heard of it with a child, really, except in the literature, so for your normal healthy child, work with it. I know that's hard. That's hard for parents. It really is. But you work with it. You keep giving fluids, depending on what else is happening. Is there diarrhea as well? Is there vomiting as well? Then, you may have to even, go in to get an IV. Um, but a lot of times, the body has this wisdom to where it will accept fluids when it needs to, you know. So even a child that is sort of limp, that limpness, it's like that's part of the recuperation. It's part of the body knowing that, I need to really rest to get through this thing. I need to
Oh,
absolutely shut down, and get real hot and burn it out, and
okay.
yeah, so it
Oh,
happens. So can you, yeah, try to dodge the antibiotics, use instead, your colloidal silver or your leaf alive or your echinacea, your um basil, all of the wonderful tools that we have at our disposal, you
okay.
know.
Awesome. Well, that's perfect. So this is the last uh, couple of questions before we open it up for my questions before we open it up for everyone.
Okay.
So we're all living, all of us, whether we recognize it or not, are all living under extreme levels of stress right now. We are in constant state of stress.
Right.
Just the things we're hearing, just everybody, people, I mean, we're living in ways we haven't ever lived before. Everyone walking around in masks and gloves, and it's affecting a lot of us, and we're not even processing it, right? So, the cortisol, everything in our bodies is just probably off the charts. What can we eat and take and drink, consume, not necessarily do, but to put in our bodies to help calm that down, that alarm system that might be just constantly going off now in our that
Right.
stress hormone.
Of
What is that
course.
doing to our bodies, and what can we take to alleviate? And I know, so that's like a big question before we open up, and I think that's going to help open us up for us. So we'll take, like, when
Right.
you're finished with that, I'll open up. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like the constant sort of fight or flight, but we are in a place where we can't fly, and this fight is with this invisible enemy. And so we just, keep pumping the cortisol and getting more and more stressed. And as we know, stress, again, you know, stress attacks our immune system, and a certain amount of stress is good, of course, but when it is like you constantly picking up these, phones, and it's really, and you're watching. I mean, just before I came on, I saw this young man who happened to be out. Clearly, he was not supposed to be, and the so-called security forces stripped him down. I mean, I don't even want to talk about it. It was just abuse. It was just abuse. So
So to
when
kind of give
we,
people information, in Jamaica, there's a curfew now.
there was a
Right.
curfew, and this was
So,
not in Jamaica, by the way. It was some
oh,
Spanish speaking country that,
okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
they were obviously enjoying it. This guy was being really beaten, in a way that was brutal. So again, that's like an autoimmune disease. I mean, the very security forces that are supposed to be taking care of you are attacking you, attacking the body. So again, that can create another kind of stress. So, I mean, those of us that have fairly, roomy homes with all the accoutrements, we are blessed, and
Mhm.
even we go through this kind of stress. But if you're jammed up one against the other, and there's that stress of just overcrowding, and now there's not enough food because you can't even go out and make the money that you used to make. It can really get serious. But all
What
right,
can you take?
again.
Yeah, I feel
Well,
like, oh.
yes, right. You can take a deep breath. First of all, you can take some deep breaths, right? In the morning, and um, as we breathe in, just give thanks for the oxygen in the air that is going to nourish and empower our bodies, for the prana in the air. We try and get into green space. We try and stand on the earth for a while. We can have circles, love circles, prayer circles with our family. and just affirm that, wow, we're blessed to be here with each other. Um, we can have prayer meditation with our own selves and our own spirit, just to affirm that, we are always loved and watched over, and we carry angels on our shoulder. We are guided and protected. So all of that. And then we can also, a talk with a friend, you know, helping others, because sometimes when we're lost in our own world and, all of that worry surrounds us, just getting out and being able to reach out to another human being, whether it's by a phone call or a visit. If it's the elders, we really have to keep them, 6 to 10 feet
Right,
away, but we can
right,
still
right.
wave at them through the grill
Yeah.
and say, I just missed you. I just want to come see you, or, bring them a package properly sterilized, of course. And, you know,
So before we open up,
so
sis, can you
one more
give
thing.
like 4 foods? Yeah, just the
Yes,
some foods, what they can consume.
yes. Well, I tell you, before we leave this stress thing, also there are
No, it is
herbs.
stress. Uh-huh.
Oh, the same stress thing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I wanted to talk about lavender oil,
Ah,
which is such a great nervine. And it's really, I mean, you can rub it on the temples, you can put it in your diffuser, you can put it in your warm bath, you
nice.
know, and that's excellent. Another calming one is fever grass, and you can either use fever grass oil or use the tea itself. And you know, after you boil the tea, you just pour it into your bath again, or just boil it and let it diffuse throughout the house, very relaxing and soothing.
Nice.
Um, uh, calming, soothing. I'm thinking of, all I can think of is foreign oils like chamomile oil right now. Basil is extremely powerful. It's very calming, very soothing. Again, all lovely basil. We can make tea of it and again put it in the bath. And it's also great to submerge your head, because it's something that really clears your aura of that worry and sort of oppressive, negative vibration. And that will leave you just feeling like energized but calm, So that's
How would you
another
do
lovely.
that? How would you do that with the basil?
With the basil, you just take it and make a nice strong tea of it in a pot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And you can either steam it, but I mean, I really love the bath with it. You
Yeah.
pour it into the bath and into a hot bath, and then you just lay there and relax, and ooh, you can submerge your head in it 9 times,
Yeah,
make it
that's
like a
the part I was
ritual.
wondering. You can pour it over your head or something,
You
or you
can.
can,
I just like to dip my entire self down beneath the water.
just
Yes,
hold your nose,
sometimes,
right?
sometimes it's like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So basil is great,
Okay.
great for that.
Okay.
Rosemary, another good head oil, for clarity. And our sage, of course, burn sage in the
Mhm.
house. And again, that just gets sort of negativity out of the space
Mhm.
and leaves you clear, be clear.
Okay. Okay. And
Energy.
so those are teas, right? And
Right.
those are teas that people can drink. And are there any
Right.
foods that calm us?
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Well, I don't recommend, people say, oh, I just had to have some ice cream. I needed to come. I don't recommend dairy at this juncture, because for most of us, especially people of color, we produce a lot of mucus in response to dairy. So, and what really kills people is the mucus, the excessive production of mucus, it clogs up the lungs. So, no, we want to try and stay away from dairy. But there are other foods that are comforting for me. A mango, yes, it's mango
Okay, so more
season
like
again.
comfort foods, but nothing. So it has an effect on your psyche, your emotion, your brain, but not on necessarily on your body. It's the brain that then calms the body. Is there so more so the
Yes.
teas, right? The teas are the ones that
Right.
actually.
Yes, those
Okay,
warming teas, those soothing
okay,
teas. Again,
okay,
you can
okay.
have lavender, that's, and the fever grass, and The soups, I find soups are very comforting.
Okay.
Those warm soups.
Okay.
Can be bean soup or pumpkin soup is lovely. And pumpkin, now vitamin A, what they found is that vitamin A is a specific for pneumonia, um, mycobacterium pneumonia particularly, but anything with the lungs, any kind of pneumonia. So you want to make sure that your vitamin A levels, as well as your D and your E, are very high. So pumpkin is so powerful and so rich in vitamin A. So you cook that pumpkin soup, throw some basil in there and some rosemary and some other lovely herbs, your onions and your garlic and your pepper. So that is like, yes, that is definitely what you want to consume.
Okay.
And your for D, of course, sunshine. Sunshine is so amazing, and it's amazing. Sunshine is a source. Sunshine, the sun is our source, and we want to get that. But if you're not in a situation where you can't get your sunshine, vitamin D and about 10,000 IU of that is good. If you can get your, people don't want to go to the doctor right now, but when the smoke clears, try and get your vitamin D levels taken, right? And see what your D3 levels are, because a lot of us are very low, even living in the tropics, and we don't know, So 10,000 IU of your vitamin D, mushrooms are vitamin D, sunshine, just get out there and sunbathe. Sometimes you get in the sun and you can feel your skin kind of drinking up the sun rays, and that probably means like you need it. Your body is calling for it. And that will fight depression, it fights heart disease, it fights diabetes, it fights colds and coughs and flu. So just think of this as a form of influenza, because that's really what it is. Frequently when we get influenza, it's a form of a coronavirus. So this is another and quite a bit more serious because of its contagion, high level of contagion. It's a form of flu. So
right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for the affirmation, Mama. I getting some messages. People want to add there. Some folks want to ask you some questions, and it's around that time. But
Can I just mention one more thing? Having your salads with your raw onions and the white onions, I would say, because they're so strong. I mean, the reds are a little more mild and tasty, but get those white onions in there and your garlic in there, chop all of that up in it, and then put some of those herbs that we talked about, along with your lettuce and tomato. And yesterday you mentioned seaweed, your nori. If you can get nori, oh, lovely. That is so helpful too. Again, the mineral content of the blood, Dulse has a lot of iron in it as well. And I also want to mention homeopathy, which, that's kind of hard to get into as a topic now. But I would say that there's some specific homeopathic remedies that are very powerful right now. And homeopathy, I mean, there are over 200 million people that actually practice homeopathy throughout the world. It is in Europe, very popular. It's also very popular in India. And they've said in India that the homeopathic remedy that they want everybody to take is Arsenicum album. So that is one of the remedies that is a major pushback against the virus. Then there are all of the remedies, and everybody experiences it a little different. So it's kind of hard to find what they call genus epidemicus, which is that one remedy that is going to really help you to do battle against it. But there are herbs there are homeopathic remedies like influenzinum, which is for influenza. Gelsemium, which is another influenza, remedy, which is like that sleepy kind of besotted look where, you're heavy, your face looks very heavy and you're feeling like, I just want to go lay down somewhere. Lots of fatigue, lots of heavy limbedness, lots of aches and pains, eupatorium, again, that's bone set. So for that bone breaking, flu-y kind of feeling. And then there's camphor. some of the more scary sights we've seen is when somebody's suffering from corona and they look like they're passing out. They kind of can hardly hold themselves up. And sometimes they do pass out and they're feeling very cold. Camphor would be the homeopathic remedy, and a 200C strength for all of those. So, you know, I am certified homeopath and I love it. Such an elegant modality, such a powerful modality. So it can be something that really helps us to see our way through this corona period. So,
right.
yes.
So we're gonna open up. What I do want to say on that note, just closing out the second section is, you know, we talked about the sunbathing, the feet on the earth, we can't do forest bathing, a lot of us right now, but or some of us can do the sea bathing, but most can't. But you know, I guess the Epsom salt or sea salt in the tub, you know, but
Right, there you go.
yeah, but I think what I would like to say to everyone is that we didn't really touch that much on homeopathy. There may be one or two questions on that as we open up now everyone's mic. We actually are going to send out an email with some information if you want to have a one-on-one consultation with Tyoma. And so we'll send that out because I know she does, you know, consultations for people around very specific things around their overall being with homeopathy. So we didn't get to touch on it that much, but we will send out the information for people to be able to have a session or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it takes with her. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I think everyone's mic is open. Hi. Oh, lots of people.
Hello.
Hi. How about we use the raise hand thing? Oh, there we go. Do you have a question? You know, you Rihanna, you get to go because you have a camera on. So 30-something people don't have their cameras on. There is a raise hand icon under reaction. No, it's not. It's somewhere in your. Ooh, okay. Maybe everyone should mute again and type your questions. Maybe you should type your questions in the chat. Okay. And you can send them to me or you can send it to any host or, you know. So is Rhiannon, because I can see you, I'm going to unmute you. Okay. And I know you had a question.
So I typed my question as well. Hi, such a pleasure. Irma, such a pleasure to see you again.
Good to see you, my darling.
So I have a particular question and something that has been a little bit disarming for me. I have a dear elder friend who's in the ER and she's on a ventilator and she's struggling for her life. And one of the things that is bothering me about the medical system is not an integrated medical system. No. And they're not giving her anything to support her. And I was like, what can I bring her at the hospital that could actually, that she could take that would support her immune system, that would help her fight this? Because I know that the food they're giving her is not going to be anything nutritional. And I know that they're just, I met with a nurse and they're just starting to tag on giving high doses of vitamin C. They're just starting to do that on Friday.
Oh, good. Oh, so, good.
But it's still, you know, something that's really disturbing for me, and even my personal medical experience with parasites recently. That it's hard to get that integrated medicine mindset or knowledge, and I just want to know what I can bring to her that could
that would help her. Is she in a private room?
Yeah. They're all
that's good.
Isolated.
Wonderful. Because then maybe what you could think in terms of either using essential oils, right? So you could use something, you know, either get a diffuser for her or kind of have a cloth that you infuse with those essential oils that we talked about, some eucalyptus, some rosemary, some, you know, all of those kind of strong orange, you know, bergamot, those sorts of essential oils, and bring that to her, and that in itself could help to open up her her respiratory passages.
That's great.
The other,
I think if I bring the nurse a diffuser, that would really help, because then she can just set it up and then
right,
leave her with it.
yes, you're
Right,
gonna
right.
have to check first if they're open to that,
Okay.
but if they are, then utilizing that is helpful. Um, Homeopathy, if you can find a homeopath, or to go see her and maybe suggest a homeopathic remedy. The only thing is that then you wouldn't be able to use the essential oils, because they are so strong that, and homeopathy is a vibrational, modality, so you wouldn't be able to utilize it alongside the essential oils.
Okay. I know someone.
But I'm not sure if she would be able to take it. Maybe you could only put it on her pulses and have her absorb it that way. So that's one thing. Again, bringing her good, nourishing food, which, is rich in vitamin A and vitamin D and E. That would be really helpful. And maybe some kind of supplement, if she can take that. Is she on and off the ventilator?
She's fully on it now.
Oh, wow. So maybe she won't even be eating soon,
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, try those things. And I would try and get a remedy, because one of those remedies could help turn her around,
Okay.
and be that.
Okay, great. Thank you so
Yes, yes. But it's
Okay.
very much a specific science, so you would have to have somebody take her case and look at, some of the, ways, the symptoms that she's manifesting.
much. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank
So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
So
Good.
Tyoma, I just got my chat window organized, and there is quite a bit of chat that I want to read some to you, and
Mm-hmm.
you can make a note maybe and just answer them in one if you can. Just so
Okay.
one thing is, someone Ayoka said, "What about tea tree oil?" And I'm
Yes.
gonna do three at a time, right? So what
Right.
about tea tree oil? And then Anaite says, I have read a lot about the impact of COVID 19 in the lungs, specifically the solidification of mucus, or say the
Exactly.
accumulation of debris, and that consequently it's super important to keeping the air moist. What can you recommend
Yes.
about this and manage excess of mucus? I think about this because
Right.
I suffer, like many other people, from sinusitis too. So I guess in general, it
Mm-hmm.
would be good to know, I guess also for asthmatics, right? And then I'm going to read another one.
Yeah.
And let's see, this one's not going to count, but if someone said they find French lentils are much easier for them to digest. And then
Mm.
BB says, I'm a student midwife. I'm having a lot of clients ask about prevention. They hate when I say go to the kitchen, but it's true. That's just a
Mm.
affirmation. And then you
Right.
answered Rhiannon. So if whatever you can remember, I'll remind you if you, yeah.
Okay, well, tea tree, yes, that's very, very powerful too, as we know, and really wonderful in terms of opening up the lung passages and, helping the mucus to run out. So yes, tea tree in a diffuser is good, and it clears the air as well. So that's excellent. And then the second one, I actually don't have a pen next to me. I probably need to get one. But what was the second one that you mentioned? Second.
Well, there was the one about
Oh,
the
Anite
lungs. Yes,
was
the
the,
lungs
yes.
and
So,
moisture and sinusitis.
right.
Mhm.
So if you're home, again, the steaming is really helpful to, replenish that moisture, and to also, help to cleanse the respiratory tract, upper respiratory tract. So steaming with the herbs would be really helpful. And yes, this is one reason we actually didn't get to it, but the foods that you eat, we did talk about not having dairy at this time, because the foods that you eat, you don't want them to be mucus producing food. So you really want to utilize more acidic foods that will cleanse mucus away. You want to have those aromatic and those hot foods as well. So ginger, your turmeric, your pepper, your cayenne pepper, even black pepper, because in Ayurveda that's used at the first sign of an infection. You make some black pepper tea, and that helps you to avoid, the uh, a more serious infection. So utilizing all those things again in food, in the steam, in the bath, just in your life, think you're gonna just love those herbs and live with them as much as possible, and incorporate them in your life. And of course, you can put on a hot shower too. Some people do that and just have the bathroom fill up with steam, and be there for a while for asthmatics, for people with sinus issues. Well, you can more use the pot, but any of those would help.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Sister Talma,
Dr. Maggie.
I'm seeing, sorry, yeah, I don't think we can hear her. But
Mhm.
if I'm asking your question and you want to unmute yourself, that would be fine. Shirley's asking about mullein, and she has found it useful for respiratory problems in the past as a tea. And then to add
Yes.
on to that, Victoria has asked a couple of times about making oils
Mhm.
from the herbs that you've mentioned. So if you can probably address those two.
Right. I'm at 10%. Let me see if I can just sorry about that. Sorry. It was at 80 something. Just give me one little minute. And
And then,
yes,
there's another one
here we
about
go.
lupus.
Loofah, dry brushing.
No, lupus.
Oh, lupus.
Lupus.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
So
Yeah.
address the other two, I think, first. I was just trying to give you a little time.
Yes. So there are lovely herbs. Sorry about this. It's gotten all tangled up because, give me 1 second.
Substitute for ginger. And another
Yeah.
one, if ginger is too harsh,
1 sec.
for one's stomach, or turmeric. She probably can't hear me.
Yeah, I can
Can live
just
food be
see.
harmful feeding of a virus? Yeah, and then someone else is
Live
actually
food.
also, well, yeah, let me pause because I have multiple about mullein. So there are
Okay.
multiple
Yeah,
questions about mullein.
mullein is big. Uh-huh. That's a major herb. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on one.
So I
Oh,
love Tyoma.
when you lose your
I love it.
charger.
When we go in the park, everyone's like, she's like, feel this herb. See, I love it. She's so relaxed. That's why she's my good friend. Because I'll be like, oh my God, we only have 7 minutes. And she's like, easy, girl. You want to live long, right? So
Sweetheart.
I'm
All right,
learning.
I'm almost all set.
Oh, a new
Okay,
message just
yay.
came in. Oh, so
All right.
mullein,
So mullein,
and
yeah,
yeah.
mullein is an excellent herb for coughs. It is actually found wild in New York City's parks. That was one of my faves. And so, it's indigenous to that region and beautiful herb. So yes, mullein is good for coughs. So is coltsfoot. Coltsfoot is another one. You've got pleurisy herb, out there as well for coughs. And then of course you know, our ginger and eucalyptus and so on is very good when, that mucus is not coming up because they're expectorant. So they're like all of them actually. So they get it out. So you can make yourself a lovely blend with those herbs, any or all of those herbs. And that's really going to help you get everything up and out. So for bronchitis, for sinusitis, for any kind of flu, those are really helpful. Yeah,
And mullein specific for the lungs.
definitely. Yeah, that's like
Okay.
the lung herb. It's
Oh.
beautiful. Yeah, man. Mhm.
Okay. And someone's asking about, before we go to the making of your oils,
Mhm.
there are a couple of interesting questions here. So One is, I think the easiest one to answer first before we go to yarrow is ginger. If ginger is too harsh for your stomach, and turmeric, or should you use turmeric? I don't know if Carice wants to unmute herself and ask this. And cannabis as a medicine, do you recommend a substitute for ginger if it's too harsh for the stomach?
Right.
So I'm trying to, yeah, so.
Yeah, there are a few things that a substitute for ginger. You can use turmeric. Turmeric is in the same family as ginger, but it's not as hot. So you may be able to get away with turmeric, utilizing that instead. You also don't have to take it internally, right? Because something like eucalyptus, for example, you can rub externally on the chest and rub it on the back, and that's really going to help you get stuff up and out, and you can infuse, and so you don't necessarily have to take in these hot herbs internally. There are people, it's just your makeup that, anything hot, doesn't go well with your system. So there are all kinds of things to substitute. It would be more, mullein or the cold sport, that would be helpful for you.
Okay. So did we?
Irish moss will be easy.
Okay. So we have a couple of minutes, T, and I'm going to try to stay true to this. Maybe we'll go over just about 5 minutes, and we'll do a poll and ask for the future, like what people want to see with other, just the best way to get to everything. But yarrow, we just touched on.
Right.
Yeah. And any advice on herbs or food to aid toward the autoimmune disease lupus?
Oh, wow. Well, lupus is, the presentation of lupus is often multifactorial. It is an autoimmune disease that women will get more frequently. And because, again, this is one of those that I would want to treat with homeopathy, or start with homeopathy with, for sure, because you want to get the whole picture. It can be like joint aches and pains and fevers and inflammations of various kinds and rashes. So there are a lot of different elements to lupus, and quite serious. And it's something that, I would definitely want to just sit with whomever and, see what is the what's the energy underlying it, and address that before anything else, and see what we can also ease with herbs and maybe other minor homeopathic remedies as well. But we definitely want to look for constitutional.
Okay, so I have 3 last questions that I'm gonna, the same one, I'm gonna ask for that one last, of making your, someone's waiting, making oils, but we'll save that one for last. Someone is asking about any itchy, dry skin remedies, topical or for diet. And then a couple of people keep asking about cannabis as a medicine, and or to treat the virus, and or your views on cannabis.
Right.
So those are 3.
Right. Okay. Somebody had asked about yarrow, is it?
Yeah. Yes, that would be
Okay.
number 4. I thought we addressed it when I was answering a question. My apologies if we didn't.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, so yarrow is mostly a fever herb. But it can also be like a kind of cold and flu herb as well, but it's cooling. It really cools down. So if there is an issue with fever, yarrow could be helpful with that as well. So it's an herb for wound healing as well, and bruising. But yes, it is particularly used for fever, big fever. Aromatic herb as well. So like most aromatic herb, those oils all kind of work in similar ways to loosen up mucus, to help with breathing and so on. So it's excellent for those things.
GI. Sometimes you have nausea and vomiting with COVID. So, because it's good for gastrointestinal symptoms as well. So, yarrow would be an herb that you could choose when you have that um, combination of symptoms, constellation. And it's very good to induce sweating, which is why it's good for fever. Yeah.
Okay.
So, diaphoretic. Yeah. So, and then the other question was what again?
The oils is the last one, and
Okay.
um,
Oh, itchy
let me.
skin.
Yeah, the itchy skin, and then
Okay.
I'll just read some things in closing. But if
Okay.
someone has something burning, I mean, it's saying I have to unmute you, but I'm just testing you, Nia. I unmuted you. Yeah, so if you could address that first, the itchy skin, is it diet or something topical to put on?
Right. It really depends again on the cause. If you don't drink a lot of water, and tend to have dry skin, then this would be the cause. And of course, with all the heat throughout the winter, it does make for drier skin, drier and therefore more itchy skin. So it could be just something as simple as just slathering on some, shea and cocoa butter, and allowing that to absorb, and drinking more water, making sure you drink a lot of water. Vitamin E oil is helpful also for that. And yeah, that's what I would suggest, not knowing what else it might be. I mean, if it's something like eczema, then you're dealing with another, other different remedies. But just offhand, olive oil for dry skin, that's excellent too. Coconut oil is very good. Yeah, so there are a few. And you can have fun, we have this time at home now. If you have some shea butter, you can combine it with some cocoa butter and some aloe and, some essential oils that you really like the scent of, and some olive oil or coconut oil, and make yourself your own little jar of, skin butter.
Right.
So,
Someone's asking where they can get oils from in Brooklyn, and the type of oil. Is it therapeutic grade, or it's not the other one, right? That people use as aromatherapy. You're talking, right. So that's a question. They're saying, where can I get oils in Brooklyn?
You're talking about like essential oil, not essential
Yeah,
oils.
essential
Essential oils.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I mean, having been a member of the co-op all these years, I just really get the now oils from the co-op. Now, if you're talking about those that you can consume internally, supposedly, I mean, what comes to mind is Young Living, but there are quite a few companies out there now that do produce those, ingestible oils. But Young Living comes to mind, as a good company. That's what you can.
Okay, so they would get therapeutic grade, right? And
Right.
yeah. Okay, sometimes Whole Foods would have therapeutic grade. I know there's a lot of places open, but otherwise online, like you said, I think that makes sense. And someone's saying, thank you for all the information for yarrow. They use olive oil for their dry skin.
Cannabis.
Go ahead. There you go.
Yes, hello. Greetings.
Hi, greetings, Sister Tyler. Several people have asked about cannabis, and I just wanted to get you to remind you of that.
Right. Well, honestly, I don't know a huge amount about cannabis as a specific for COVID. I know that, well, I will tell you that it is a wonderful thing for malaria. This is a family story that, when nothing else cured malaria, my aunt, who had a terrible malarial fever with her, somebody came to my grandmother and said, listen, I can get you what will heal that malaria, and came back with some ganjas, and she used that and she never had another malarial attack. So I know it is in that way, good for viruses. it's also really good for asthma. So it does have respiratory uses. The way you do that is to traditionally you would crack a coconut. You would just like separate the top off a coconut. You would put like alcohol in the coconut, put the cannabis inside, cover the coconut again, and bury it. Bury it for like 14 days. And then when you brought it up, you would utilize that. You'd utilize that extract for asthma, and apparently that worked very well. Um, Not being able to as easily bury things, maybe, you know, you could either use a pot or maybe just, you know, grate some of the coconut, put it in it with some alcohol, and make that kind of tincture, you know, as a specific for asthma. But yeah, I imagine, you know, it works so well for everything else. Has anybody known anyone who's utilized it for that purpose? No?
No.
Oh, you know, yeah, I'm willing to bet, you know, because it is, again, useful for asthma. And if you watch people who are having an attack with COVID, you know, an acute attack, severe attack, they've got the retractions, they've got the rapid breathing. It looks as if they're having an asthma attack, a very bad asthma attack. You know, so you see that. So I'm willing to bet that, you know, the tincture of herb will really be helpful, you know. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say read a couple of things, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can select which one. And if someone, you know, wants to put it in the chat and ask that we follow up, I'm more than happy to do that. I really, 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 before we wind down to the last two comments, I want to thank everyone for dealing with our little technological glitches and our first time doing this. I'm just so excited. So many of us are in different places or even different countries. And so I think this is a great first effort. Sharice, one of our back end producers, and I say back end because she's really front end with Yoli. They don't like me to mention their name, and Steven and everyone. And she's always about take action, just do it. And don't always worry about everything and really put it out. So I want to thank everyone who actually made this happen. But Tyoma, there are a couple of things that we didn't really address. So one thing is making oils in your home. Another one was asking, does the rubbing down with white rum and putting people in ice also really work for fevers? And another one that I've seen come up a couple of times here is the neti pot. Just to clear that the people have read that, Nia actually has read that we should be cautious about using neti pots during this time to avoid sending the virus into the lungs. Can you address that concern? So those are the last ones to take. And if anyone else wants to text anything, I'm sorry, not text. Sorry, that's how I communicate all the time. If anyone wants to type anything in the chat, we will address it at a later time.
Okay, yes. Yeah, the neti pot, really what happens with that usually is that it swings to the throat and then on into the mouth, and you end up spitting out all the stuff. But I can see how people would want to be cautious with that, with a neti pot. I really don't utilize one. I just will sniff the salt water and flush it out. Salt does have a cleansing, and it will like get that, and because it pulls mucus from the upper respiratory tract, that will help to kind of coat any viral particles and get them out, but yes, definitely do it gently, and if you're nervous about it, then forget about that part. You can also gargle with the salt water, and that is helpful too. I actually have not had a time when I can say that when I've used salt water that it's actually swung into my lungs, but everybody's respiratory apparatus is somewhat different. So if you feel nervous about kind of getting that in your lungs, I would say don't do that part.
Right.
Just do the steaming instead.
Right.
Mhm. Yes.
Right. And then there was the last thing about making oils in your home, like the
Right.
oil or and yes.
Right. So with oils, you're going to be making, if it's in your home, you're going to be making not an essential oil. You're going to be making an infusion oil. So that oil is made when you get your plant material and you make sure it is, externally dry. It doesn't have to be dried, but it has to be dry, as in no water on it. And you put it in enough oil to cover, right? And you can do it with olive oil, but olive oil already has a kind of a heavy scent of its own. So some other lighter oil, like sunflower oil, or if you don't mind the scent of coconut oil, again, it depends what you're utilizing the oil for, and how much of the actual scent of the herb you want in it. But you could utilize those, and then put a little vitamin E oil to help prevent it getting rancid, and also to help prevent any mold growing on it, right? And just make sure it's completely covered. And then you can sit it in a cool, dark place for about 2 weeks. And again, I'm off the top of my head with this, so I may miss a step, but there are lots of recipes on the internet. But you put it in a cool, dark place, and then you squeeze it out. You take it out, squeeze it, and you can put it through muslin. You can squeeze it through some muslin cloth, and then you'll get all of as much of the plant material as possible. And and you keep it somewhere cool, the fridge maybe, or if if it gets really hot where you are, you might want to utilize the fridge or the back of a cupboard. And then you can utilize it for salves, or just to utilize on your skin if you want. So it depends.
Thank you so much, Sister Tyoma. All these messages, they're just saying thank you, Tyoma, for your wealth of knowledge. Thank you. Positive vibes. Thanks for the feedback. doTERRA also makes a good food grade essential oil. This was fantastic. Wow. Cannabis soaked in rum, rub on affected areas. Please advise how to make sanitizer. We'll send that out because I want to be people's time, right? And so we'll type that one up and send it out. And just thank you is what everyone is saying. So Sister Bell, thank you for your time and your love. And I just really thank everyone for doing this. This is a part of building community and not feeling isolated and disconnected, but also understanding how we need to build community. My sister Shirley is always about building community. There she is. Amazing artist from the Apollo. I mean, I can't go through everyone, but she's really always about how do we pull our traditions back to connecting, and it always comes back to community. So Tyoma, thank you all. I'm just so appreciative.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sharice and Stephen and Yolanda.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to all the support that we got from the team. That was beautiful. Thanks a lot. We really pulled it together quickly. Do we have time for there's this wonderful poem.
Oh, absolutely, because we didn't do it was just a poem, Mama, Sister, Love. We can do that.
It's not my poem. It's written by Ian Mayer, but it was such a beautiful and such an appropriate poem for right now.
So we'll see the poem and then close. So that'll be
yes.
Okay.
But you know what? Guess what happened? I don't think I sent it to you. Would you like to read it?
probably did.
Yes, I sure did. It was the last thing I sent to you.
Um, okay, it says, let me just make sure. You cannot cover me with your matrix of fear. I'm riddled with antiviral software. Sorry, I didn't hear the news. Your body counts. The sun, too, is unawares. I was distracted by the hummingbees, the ubiquitous birds, the monarch butterflies perched on the tip of the lamb's tongue stem swaying in the midday breeze. I have no masks to wear. See me staring into eternity where you can never see. Get behind me, Satan. You will not steal this long awaited spring from me. This is mine.
Yeah, give thanks. Give thanks to Ian Mayer for that beautiful poem, because the spring really is ours.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing time. And everyone stay safe. And yay, thanks Stacy for using all the technology and putting a hand clap up.
Yes,
I mean,
and thanks Danita.
this is certain age group, y'all are working this technology. I'm gonna
Thank
keep
you,
up.
Marguerite. Yes,
Okay,
and thank you, Sister Tayoma, for being the visionary and bringing this all together with your team. I want to thank you. Thank you so much. And blessings. Everyone, stay safe, stay well, stay strong. Thank you for being in this circle of love.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, everyone, good night. And we'll send you information for next week. Pass the word.
Yes. All right. Bless up.